whining little whelp.
From the Gettysburg Tour Studio.
Hey everyone, it's Cameron.
Shut up!
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg Today.
There's no time. Hello, exactly.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very special edition of Addressing Gettysburg Today. I am Matt, and with me, as always, is Veronica Bristensky, Esquire, the Johnny Cochran of Franklin County, I think is what they call you, right?
Yeah,
yes, the
like
esteemed criminal defense attorney. And, of course,
Eric.
Eric.
Other things, too, but we'll just...
But
family show.
Whatever it is, you're esteemed. And, of course, Eric, the producer, is there in the corner. Today, we have a very special guest with us, and we're not going to do as much of the banter as we do in the beginning. In fact, that was the extent of it. So let's get right to it. We've got a lot of calls in the queue. But in case you didn't know, we've been talking about it for almost a week now. Steve Sims, Superintendent of Gettysburg National Military Park, is with us. And welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much. It's my honor.
It's our honor. Thank you very much for coming on. We had a coffee the other day, which I found very enjoyable. Actually, I had a hot chocolate, but it was just as enjoyable as a coffee. And our conversation was what was enjoyable.
I was going to ask if the drink was on it. Okay, you got to pull stuff out of it.
Well, both.
Sometimes.
A lot of things were enjoyable. But we talked about doing this, and I got to tell you, I was very surprised that when I said I would love it if you came on the show, you're like, okay. I'm like, just like that. I've never had a government official so easily say yes.
I got to check to see if I was drinking coffee that morning. But yeah, no, it's very important that I start getting out into the community a little bit more, and I've recognized that, and it's my pleasure to be here and to answer questions. You said there's lots of questions and information out there that's floating around, and the park's been silent.
Tons of
very quiet.
Yes,
and I agree.
Yeah.
So I'm here. And, let me try to help answer those questions.
Good. Now, so you had mentioned that the park had been silent and everything like that. And that was something that we kind of touched on when we were talking. And you gave me a pretty good reason as to why we haven't heard so much from the park, or from you especially. Do you remember what the reason was? Do you want me to refresh your memory?
Me.
Okay. Well, when you came in, the lockdown was soon after, but you came in with specific tasks, right? You were tasked to kind of like bring this place into compliance, correct?
Yeah. So every time a superintendent switches out, they have what they call transition management assistance program. And so there's other people that come into the park. They survey the employees, they survey the partners in the community, and they write a laundry list for the incoming superintendent to say, here's what you need to focus on. And as you may recall, when I got here, it was after about 2.5 years of rotating superintendents. Mm-hmm. And so that didn't leave a lot of continuity. It didn't really help with relationships. It didn't really help with managing the park and, leading the staff, if you will.
Sure.
So, yeah, I had a list, and it was pretty clear that I had a lot of housekeeping to do. Mm-hmm. I needed to clean house is not the right words to use, but I needed to
bring your house in order.
Bring my house in order.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that's what I focused on with COVID. I got here 2 months later. We're in the midst of COVID, so everything's shutting down. So I really had an opportunity to look inward,
right,
and focus on, what are the policies that we're following, the laws, what are we doing, get to know the park, get to know, my staff. And so I really jumped in, and I think we did a lot of good things getting the house in order, and now I feel that this is now the right time to really shift my focus and get out into the community more.
So it wasn't that you were neglecting the public. It was that you were very hyper-focused on fixing things internally first. Would that be a fair assessment?
Fixing might be too strong of a word. I mean, a lot of it was learning.
Okay.
Learning what was going on, learning about this park and the passion of the community.
Oh, yeah.
Learning what's worked, what hasn't worked, and supporting the staff, because, I'm a huge believer in, a collaborative management style. And, if I can take care of the staff, then I know they're going to take care of the park. So I
Right.
wanted to make sure they were taken care of. So there's a lot of organizational stuff, and of course we're a bureaucracy, so there's tons of rules and policies that we're checking down. Where are we on this? How are we organized? How are we getting this done? Are we trying to chew off too much? Do we have a thorough and clear plan on how we're going to do things? So that's what we did.
Where were you before here?
Valley Forge.
Valley Forge. And is the passion that the visitors to Valley Forge have on par with Gettysburg's, or are we a lot more insane? I know you wouldn't say it that way, but
that there's a lot more engagement from the Gettysburg community than the Valley Forge community. Valley Forge is a great spot. I'm sure many of you,
it's beautiful.
Many of the listeners have been there before. But it's like the one green space within Montgomery County.
Okay.
And so they got lots of bike trails, lots of recreational use. They get about 2 million visitors per year, which Gettysburg only looks at about 1 million. But the visitor center at Valley Forge only gets 200,000, and the visitor center here gets about 500,000. So I think that really kind of paints a picture of who's really coming to the park, who are your visitors. And so we have a lot of dog walkers. I mean, we have them here in Gettysburg too, but Valley Forge is a little bit more relaxed.
I have a question about the numbers. And people always ask me, how does the park determine the number of visitors you get? And I say, I have no idea. Because it can't just be through the visitor center, because people don't always just go to the visitor center. They just go to the park. And there's many ways to get into the park. So how can you, on such a porous, bordered park like ours, how do you keep track of who comes into the park?
So there's numbers that we track. So we have counters throughout the park. So, vehicle counters. We have the visitor center numbers. And then we send it to the social scientists of the National Park Service, and they crank out a number.
Okay.
And so that's, in a nutshell, how
that's
it's
how
determined.
You figure it out. Okay.
In other words, I don't really know.
So when I'm like driving on Hancock Avenue or something, and I run over one of those tubes that wasn't there a couple of days ago.
We're taking a photo of you. We're tracking your license plate and your cell phone number. And we got
I knew it. That's it. I'm
Kidding.
walking from now on. No, of course. But that's one of those counters, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay. It's like in the old service stations when you'd go in and you'd ride over this tube and it would ring a bell. Remember those?
I do, but
yeah.
I'm trying to picture where they are on
They're
the
not there all the time.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
They're not there all the time.
They're permanent.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
They are?
Yeah.
Where are you?
Well, I'm thinking, I remember driving over one on Hancock Avenue.
Yeah.
That's permanent?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Well, you're the
what
boss.
What you drove over might not be it.
Okay.
I think they're actually boxes on the side with like a little...
Oh, like a little laser or something that yeah, okay. Then I'm talking about something totally different. But okay, whatever. So that's how you count that. And then the visitor center has their own way. The foundation has their own way of counting who goes in there as well.
Yeah, very precise, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
okay. Good. So when you come here to Gettysburg, having been at Valley Forge, was it kind of a little bit of a culture shock once you started to realize how nuts we are about the place?
It wasn't a culture shock. Again, I think it's just learning because there's 423 national park units out there, and they're all different.
Yes,
they're all unicorns in a way. And so, if you're at Yellowstone, you've got lots of different things. You've got people putting bison in their cars, and major storms and floods and geysers, and so you have to manage those natural resources. You come to Gettysburg, and you've got something very, very different. Mm-hmm. You've got a place in American history where there's a significant battle, a very crucial battle, and not only that, you have all the stories of individuals. You have the stories of why the battle happened, the context of the Civil War, and then you have African American stories, the women and children. You have immigrant stories. I mean, there's just so much there, and I think this is the beautiful thing about the National Park Service is that it protects America's heritage, and it is the storybook of America. And so regardless of your background, where you're from, what your interests are, I think there's something for everybody in the National Park Service. So you can make a connection. And once you can make that connection to that special place, you become a co-owner of that space. And I consider all you Gettysburgians and everyone that's listening here a co-owner of this place. And
the proper term is Getty's nerds.
Getty's, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sir. I'm still learning. And as co-owner, you have a responsibility to preserve, protect, and share this special place. And let me know what I'm not doing right, which I think some have, and let me know what I am doing right, which some have too. I mean, it's a relationship.
Sure.
And so it needs to be cultivated because I'm just a civil servant. I'm not here for me. I'm here for this place.
I can appreciate that for sure because when in the early days when we didn't hear much from the park about things that were changing, my thing was like, oh, it's just this another bureaucrat who's got his little fiefdom and he's gonna. But I stand corrected on thinking that. I didn't express that out loud exactly in those words, but I do stand corrected after sitting with you, and now as we're talking now, I understand a lot more. And there's always something, like we all don't know what you know. And you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot more to it than what we can figure. And then, people speculate and they make up rumors or they hear a rumor, and who knows what to believe. So that's why I think this is great that you're on here doing this.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
So all national parks are within the Department of the Interior. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then do different national parks have different mission statements? National Military Park as opposed to, for example, Yosemite or something like that? Or is it?
Right. So there's one National Park Service mission.
Okay.
To preserve and protect in perpetuity the natural and cultural resources and values of that national park. And then to share that for the visitor, provide that for the visitor enjoyment and education. So that's the core mission of the National Park Service. But each national park unit is separately legislated. So you have enabling legislation. So Congress has to say, make this a national park unit, and that then becomes, okay, what are we focusing on? What is our period of significance? What are the resources and values that we're here to serve and protect?
Oh, interesting. Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that.
Well, so resources and all that stuff. Let's go into the beavers. So we'll start with the beavers.
Man, you're starting big.
Let's start with the big one. Get
Come
that
out of the gate strong here, man.
Well, the beavers have been very controversial. Here in Addressing Gettysburg, we made T-shirts. Team Beaver, Team Mozart. People who want the beavers to swim around and flap their little tails, and people who want to who are concerned more about the monument being flooded away. And I'm happy to say Team Mozart is winning by one T-shirt in sales, so that's good. But
we sell 3 of them altogether.
11. So my question is, not question, but would you clear the air for us? What is the deal with the beavers?
Absolutely. Let me start by kind of tagging on to what you said about the fiefdom.
Okay, sure.
Because I think it's relevant in that the decisions that I make are going to be rooted in policy, law, regulation.
Right.
So when we have issues like beavers, I'm going to the policies, the National Park Service policies. What's to say my responsibilities are to this resource? Because, again, I'm not here for me. Mm-hmm. And I need to be consistent. So if I have this issue with beavers or I have some other issue that's somewhat related, I want to be consistent in how we address these things. So beavers. So National Park Service policy says you allow natural processes to proceed and don't interfere with them unless you have some impact to the cultural resources or infrastructure, roadways. That's when you would step in and intervene in that process.
Okay.
So with the beavers, and they've been quite active. I think there's 4 separate dams.
I think so,
in that
yeah.
space right now. And I'll get to your point.
Okay.
I do want to say they are excellent volunteers, probably our best, most dependable volunteers, because they're clearing the woods, the vegetation,
Right.
it's keeping that area clear, keeping that view shed open for us.
All right. 1 point for the beavers.
Thank you. But the resources, like the monuments and the markers, we're monitoring those. And we're keeping an eye on those. So if the foundation of the monument starts to subside, or if the roadway starts to be undermined, we're going to take action at that point to say, "Oh, beavers, you've taken it too far. We've got to intervene." But so far, there's been no measurable, identified, documented anything damage to the resources. So we're going to continue to monitor. We think that they are going to leave at some point in the future. They're not a permanent fixture. Mm-hmm. Beavers usually stay until they consume the resources of that space, and then they move on. My hope is they keep moving on down to slaughter pen,
right.
that area, right?
Yes.
And then so the Plum Run, as as far as we know, there's no impact to that alignment, to that landscape. It's still there. The integrity of that space is still there. It's just pretty wet.
Yeah. Now, there's the one dam that's closest to the bridge that appears to have been breached. Was that natural, or did the park do that? Or
so, yeah, at one point we thought the beavers might have left.
Right.
And so, the biologist goes out there and like, oh, let's pull this piece of the dam down because, the beavers are going to come back and patch that immediately.
Right.
And so we pulled part of it down and we waited and ultimately, though, they did repair it. So we're like, oh, they're still around. But for a while there, we thought they had moved on.
So that was so the park did do that to see if they would come and.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And we have cameras up night.
It was quite a while though that they didn't patch that up. I mean, it's been. Did they patch it up or
they did?
They did recently.
Yeah. They should be complacent beavers. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah. They must not travel that far south.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so okay. My answer, or the answer, I think I'm pretty satisfied with that answer as to why the beavers were able to go. Do you have any further questions on the beaver? Because she's Team Beaver.
Oh, absolutely Team Beaver. I mean, there was
heretic.
There was never any fear, I don't think, of the Mozart Regiment monument.
Floating away.
Going
No,
down. Yeah,
who
right.
said that? Nobody
I mean,
said it would.
tipping
rocks
over
don't typically
or anything.
float.
Like,
Yeah.
Right. I mean, everybody was losing their minds about this. Actually, I see Ken Rich's card, and I'll give him a shout out. I mean, he had a suggestion that, as you said, Superintendent, 4 different dams. If the one that's closest to the monument is the big deal, knock that one down. It's not harming anything upstream more. I mean, there's different ways to handle it.
But as Steve pointed out, they will repair it.
They will.
So it'll be a constant, it'll be like a Benny Hill skit or something. If you speed it up, it'd be funny looking.
Much like, I mean, what you're saying, though, is leave things be, right? When a tree falls, if it falls across the road, obviously you have to take care of that. But if it falls on the hillside, for the most part, you guys let that stuff kind of go. It's nature, and animals are nature, like it or not, right? It's not like somebody brought something that's not natural here, like an alligator or something.
Right.
But I mean,
that would not be fun.
This is so much like my management team. It's like, I just listen and I wait for people to come to a conclusion.
Well, how about this though? I don't know if we're doing it this year, but in years past, they've culled the deer herd. What's the difference between that and the beavers?
Yeah, so this is before my time, so it's been decades that they've been culling the deer. And so what they decided back then was, hey, the deer are overbrowsing. There's too many deer. And it's, one, not healthy for the deer population, but it's also not good for native vegetation. It's not good for the woodline. And so they did, through a public process, they put a plan together to determine what is the right amount of deer per, I guess, acre or square mile, can't remember which would leave you a healthy population, allow forest regeneration, and native vegetation. Plus, we've got farmers who are trying to make a living, and so we want to, strike that balance as well. So yes, we still cull the deer. I think we actually started last weekend.
Oh, they're doing it now?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And what do they do? Just tranquilize them and remove them, or do they kill them and eat them?
So yes, so we actually have a contract with the USDA.
Okay.
And so they have sharpshooters, and they come in and they kill the deer, and we test them for chronic wasting disease. Every deer gets tested. And when we get the test reports back, if it's healthy, and so far every one of them has been healthy, we haven't had any indications of anything, we send it to a processor. They process the meat, and then it gets donated.
Okay.
And so I think this year United Way is handling all the donations. And I'm trying to think, apologize, I don't remember how many pounds we donated last year, but it's in the thousands of pounds.
Really?
It goes to good use.
that's great.
None of it got to my good use.
Wow.
I love
don't know what to
venison.
tell you.
That's all right. Let's take a caller now. I'll sprinkle them in here as we go through. I believe this is our friend Michael, 6 Questions Lens. Is that you, Mike?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely me.
Okay. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. Well, thank you for being on the program. I just have a question about the guide service. And some of the rumors that have been going around have been as extreme as they're looking to get rid of the guide service to they're just looking to see where the visitation numbers are to understand what the relationship of the park will be with the guide service. Can you shed any light of what the relationship will be moving forward with the licensed battlefield guides?
Yeah. So, Mike, is it?
Yes.
Mike, thank you very much for the question. So actually, last night we had our fall meeting with the Licensed Battlefield Guide service. So we met with them, and they actually kind of had the same question too. And I'll tell you, so the Licensed Battlefield Guides are part of the National Park Service mission. They have their own law that establishes that any tour for a fee has to be done by a licensed battlefield guide, and we license those guides. So fundamentally, they have to be here. They have to be here, fundamentally. Secondly, I feel personally that they provide a critical service, a critical service to our visitors because, they are experts. They are phenomenal. And, second to none, really. I mean,
I agree.
If I take my Rangers out of that conversation, they're second to none.
It's a different...
Right? I guess my Rangers. But they are a great community. And we are currently going through a long-range interpretive plan to look at what is that future of interpretation in the park, and we're having the LBGs be part of that and give us input and feedback. I know LBGs work for a lot of leadership companies, providing some excellent professional services. I mean, they do something that we can't do. They really do on a recurring basis. And whether it's a Segway tour, a horse tour, a bus tour, a car tour, a bike tour, I mean, they do it all, and it's amazing. And they can, talk to a visitor and ask them where they're from, and then they immediately have a connection from this battle that they can bring to them, and they help bring that personal connection, that connection we talked about earlier, to national parks. Because without the public, national parks will cease to exist.
Yep.
So that's where I see the Licensed Battlefield Guides and that program being just critically important. The challenge with the Licensed Battlefield Guide program, in my view, is that it's a 1915 law.
Yeah.
And the 1915 law didn't envision things that we're having today.
I agree.
And how people visit. So I think we've made some I don't know that we made any changes, but I think we're in a good place with the Licensed Battlefield Guides. Right now, we're evaluating data on visitation and how many people are using them, how many turnaways, to determine when the next test would be to license more guides. So we haven't compiled that data yet. We don't have a criteria for how we're going to decide that. But there's 140 licensed battlefield guides right now, and they're wonderful. They're part of us.
So you brought up the 1915 law, and I want you to go into that a little bit more, what your point was about bringing that up, because I can just imagine somebody watching this and going, see, 1915 law, he's saying it's antiquated, they're going to get rid of us. So clarify.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
So, I think one of the challenges that we had, at least when I got here, is that we had groups that had traditionally been able to sell tours on the battlefield that weren't using licensed battlefield guides. There was, I think, an exception that was provided previously. And I'm going back to what's the law say? What discretion do I have? Because contrary to maybe what people may think, I don't have a lot of discretion, discretionary authority. So I wanted to make sure that we were following the law, which required some of these other groups that weren't using licensed battlefield guides. They may have been using experts and scholars and authors, but they're not licensed guides. So that was a really tough thing for some of those groups to move towards those licensed battlefield guides, but that's what the law said. And so I think that really actually helps, I don't know if protect is the right word, but support the licensed battlefield guide program, because that's what the law says. If it's a paid tour, it's them.
Right.
And the only exceptions to that are schools, staff rights. Otherwise, it's the licensed battlefield guide.
And you mentioned that you don't have a lot of discretion or as much discretion as people may think you do. You're also not coming in here and making up policy out of whole cloth or rules out of whole cloth, correct? There's a procedure. There's a process.
There's a process.
You can't just come in here and dictate things. No, that's not what you're doing.
No, and I feel like I know Gettysburg well enough to know I can't go into this with half the information or with a half-baked idea, because I'm just going to get...
Yes.
Yes, we have to say the word. So... just like, the two of you were talking about the beavers earlier, that's what we do with my staff. That's what we do with our stakeholders. And I just enjoy listening because I learn at the same time, but I have the experts in the room.
Right. Okay.
And I lean on the experts. The experts, technically, the experts in policy, and they inform the decision, and we strive for consensus.
Okay.
Or we run it up the flagpole. We do that a lot, too, or talk to a solicitor.
Yes, I guess that would be important, is talking to the solicitor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Mike, thank you very much for the call. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, talk to you later. Let's take one more caller. We got a bunch in here, so let me clear out the queue a little bit, and then we'll talk without them for a bit more. Caller, I don't have a name there, so you're on the air.
Hey, Matt, it's Bill.
Oh, hey, Bill. How are you doing?
Good. Good evening, Superintendent Sims.
Hi, Bill.
Cold cell rehab a couple years ago. Great idea. Great step forward. The area now has started to overgrow. Was there a plan in place to maintain that? And if not, why not?
Bill, that's a phenomenal question.
That is.
And a great question and a timely question, because we have what they call an ACE crew. I think they showed up, or they're showing up this week. And we hired them, and it's a conservation group. And they're the ones that actually did the clearing a couple of years ago, and they're back to maintain it.
Okay.
So we have, when I came into this job, one of the first things was we had an individual that wanted to get this job done. He'd been talking with the park for a long time, and he just wanted a decision. And so I was informed that, the park had agreed to this. And so we worked together to make this happen. And this gentleman donated the money to do the clearing, was engaged with us and thinking through how to do that. But then one of my requirements was, I am not going to do anything, especially new things, if we can't maintain it, if we can't sustain this investment, because I don't want anybody that's donating money, time to this place, I don't want it wasted because it's precious. And so when we did this project, there was an endowment that was created so that we can maintain the 16 acres that we cleared. And that's what we're actually going to start, if not this week, next week, clear that out. But I'll tell you some of the challenges. There's a couple of things along with maintaining that. Is one, we wanted to see how the forest would respond. So we weren't sure once we did some of this clearing, we want to make sure that we left enough forest to regenerate. So we weren't just doing a wholesale clearing of everything smaller than 6 inches in size. We wanted to leave a variety of sizes of trees in there. We wanted to take out the invasives. So we wanted to see how that's going to respond, and then see if there's invasives that pop up now that the sunlight's hitting the forest floor. And then we wanted to see how the visitor responded to that space. So we formalized the trails through there, and we put a wayside near Bitter's Rock. And so one of the challenges that we're finding is that people aren't staying on trail.
Yeah.
And so they're just walking all over the place, and that's not healthy for that space. And then the trails are also getting washed out. So, there's some things there that we're learning so that we can continue to improve upon the process of when we do these clearings. What do we need to be prepared for? What do we need to make sure we invest in? How do we make sure this is sustainable? But yes, you're absolutely right. It has grown, and we are going to get back in there and bring it back to where it was when we first cleared it.
Anything else, Bill?
Yes, actually, I have a second question, if that's okay.
All right. 2 questions. That's Corn. Go ahead.
Within the living history community, there's a lot of rumor and speculation that there's going to be new rules on how to be on the battlefield and do living history. Are there current rules, and are they going to be modified to discourage living history on the battlefield?
Are you talking, Bill, specifically about that you have to have 20 people?
20 people, and one of the rumors I heard that there's no longer going to be firearms permitted on the battlefield within the living history context.
Never heard that one. Okay, all right, Steve. What about that? And Bill, thanks for the call. I'm gonna drop the call because I got to get other people in the queue here. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Can I ask a clarifying question? I guess.
Oh shit! I just hung up on. Well, go ahead.
So I might be able to clarify. Go ahead.
So the question I have is with living history. Is it a park organized living history program, or is it something separate?
I believe he's talking about the park organized ones.
Yes.
I've heard that rumor as well, that
from our friend
that
Mike.
Beginning next year there's going to be your group, if you're going to do living history at the park at one of the sanctioned sites, you have to have a minimum of 25 in your group.
Oh, 25.
I
heard 20. Okay.
That was what I heard.
Okay.
So I don't know the answer to this, frankly. and I will need to get back to this. I do know, or it's been shared with me, that living history community has gotten a lot smaller.
Yeah.
And I'm not familiar with how many different units there might be, but I'm understanding, and you all tell me if I have an incorrect understanding, that some of these units are really small. And so the suggestion is that they merge to become a larger living history unit, so that when we are doing the program, it is something that the visitor will see. Hey, it's not just two people, but it's actually a company, which has a little bit more impact, and somebody can say, "Oh, I get it," versus just a couple people out there.
I should have kept Bill on the phone, because when we were talking about this a couple months ago, and I said, "Well, why don't one of you guys step up, be a leader, and say to all the other groups, hey, this is the new rule, so we're all small, let's band together."
Well,
and but that's what he said. He goes, well, because it's like, I'm not a reenactor, but from what I understand, it's very, what's the word, territorial? Or?
Yeah, within that community,
they don't like to
a lot
work
of people
together.
that want to be in charge of something, and whether that's a fire team-sized company, or a squad-sized regiment. Yeah, they just want to be in charge of it.
Right.
Sounds like we have more work to do together.
Yes.
To figure this out.
Yes.
Because we want to make sure that if it's a Park Service program, that it meets the expectation of the visitor.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And we'll just have to figure that out.
But to your knowledge, as of right now, there's not like any new rule going into place next year that's going to limit groups who just cannot come up with 25 people or more.
Yeah, I think I might be answering that. I don't want to answer that because I don't know what.
Yeah.
Because I'm not directly involved with working with the living history community, and I don't want to say something that's incorrect.
Fair enough.
Because I don't know what may have been said, but I do know. I will say this: living history is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It is absolutely necessary, because I think it's two things. One, you've got people that have a connection, a lineage, a passion for this history, and they are poised to share it with our visitors in ways that maybe park rangers can't, or maybe in ways that licensed guides can't. I mean, this past 4th of July was just phenomenal. What was that, 4th Michigan? Did you see that?
First Minnesota.
First Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
we did a video on it. It was
reenactment-
great.
Yeah. it was-
That was
Fantastic,
impactful.
yeah.
When I saw that, boy, I'm just like,
The Liberty Rifles do a fantastic job, no
Right
matter
here.
what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
after the tornado that went through, I mean, it was great. So yeah, I think the bottom line is we want to figure out the living history question in the best way possible for everyone.
Yeah. Okay, good. Let's go to Aaron, I think, on the phone here. Aaron, are you there?
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Oh, Aaron. We did this. This always happens. My talk to text screener doesn't do a good job. Aaron, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you. Yourself?
I'm fine, thank you. What's your question for Superintendent Sims?
Well, first of all, I want to compliment the Park Service on the Devil's Den rehab. I thought it turned out really well. The
Agreed.
walkways are great. I mean, Smith's Battery has the fresh paint job looking, very slick, very nice up there. So I think you guys should all be very proud, and I think it's going to be a great spot moving forward.
Thank you.
My question has to do with the timing of the Little Round Top rehab project. It seems like it kind of shut down right after the battle anniversary this year. And I was just curious about that because it seems like there was still at least another 2 or 3 months of peak tourist season in there. And then I guess kind of a follow-up question to that would be, has the closing of Little Round Top affected visitor numbers for 2022 so far?
All right, Aaron, thank you so much. First of all,
Thanks,
for
Aaron.
the compliment on Devil's Den. That was a 6-month project with the intent of rehabilitating those trails, replace the asphalt trails and the stone steps with exposed aggregate concrete and granite. And the cannons got a refresh as well. And then, I think Matt was there on our National Public Lands Day.
Yep.
So for all of you out there that are listening that were at the National Public Lands Day to do the clearing of Devil's Den, thank you. Thank you. It looks awesome. So what we're doing in Devil's Den is kind of like on a mini scale of what we're doing at Little Round Top.
Right,
So
okay.
you should see the exact same type of exposed aggregate concrete sidewalks as well as the granite. It's going to be, and if Aaron liked it, then I'm hoping everyone will like it when we reopen it.
Yeah.
So to answer the timing, welcome to federal appropriations and government contracting. So that project actually started, I think it was either 2009 or 2011. And so it takes a decade plus to get to where we're at to actually put it in motion. But I'll go back to what I said earlier, that we had that time period of 2.5 years of rotating superintendents. Well, that project stopped during that time period. So one of the first things I did when I got here was restarted that project, finished the design, so that we can get it moving again. Because we've got donors that had donated money, and they're like, what's going on? It's been 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So there was a lot of pressure, and maybe self-imposed pressure on me, to get that project started as soon as humanly possible. And so fast forward, 2 years? We finish the design, we get all the approvals, we get all the funding lined up, and then we have to hit government contracting cycles. And we got the contract awarded, and then you have 2 or 3 months of working with the contractor to get approvals to actually mobilize to the site. So, and my philosophy with construction dollars is that when they're here, when you have them, time is money, because if you're not doing it today, it's going to escalate in cost later on. So I pushed it as quickly as as quickly as possible, with the caveat of don't shut it down for battle anniversary. I think we shut down July 29th.
Yeah,
shut down 27th, 29th.
Yeah, something.
But with an 8-month or 18-month window, I mean, it's kind of inevitable that some big event is going to be impacted by that, right?
Yeah.
Some calendar event.
Right. And I understand the pain that people feel with Little Round Top closed.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a very special place.
Sure.
Lots of stories, beautiful views. But I think the opportunity here, in my eyes, because I'm National Park Services, it really highlights our preservation and protection mission. And that's part of what we got to do. We've got to balance use with preservation and protection.
Yeah.
And so Little Round Top, you've been there. Mm-hmm. It was loved heavily. And so what we're going to do is rehabilitate it so that we can bring some native vegetation back, so that we can create gathering spaces for people to gather. We're going to improve them so they can gather there, not in the vegetation that's now just worn away, and now the hill's sliding down. It'll slide down into the pond and fill it up.
There you go.
So we're
That'll
doing
take
that.
care of the beavers.
And I think the other part of at least my personal thought process on the exposed aggregate concrete and the granite is that it really formalizes the place. And I feel, when I walk into that space, Devil's Den, let's just say, I feel, this is nice. Mm-hmm. I've got to behave. I've got to stay on this sidewalk.
That's a good
because
point.
This is a great. Oh, yeah, no, I don't have a bleeper over here. Anyways, so, I'm hoping that it keeps people on those improved surfaces so that we can protect the rest of Little Round Top.
Yeah.
So it's a balance of preservation and protection and visitor use.
Well, so let's touch on that, because you mentioned, we were talking about the Culp's Hill clearing before, and you had mentioned that people go off the trails, and that's not desired. But how in a 6,000 acre park do you discourage that?
I think the primary way is through education. We have to educate our visitors in what this place is, what preservation and protection means, and how we can responsibly use this space and still achieve your goals. It's your park. And so you're going to experience it in different ways.
Right.
And I'm not going to dictate how you visit it. I'm just going to say, hey, stay on trail. Don't dig up artifacts. Things like that.
Yes.
Don't kill the deer yourselves, like I handled.
Volunteerism is good, but not in every circumstance.
Right. So we want to put in place the right level of rules and regulations to manage this place, to preserve it in perpetuity, because the Park Service is in the forever business. And one day we're all going to be gone, but this place still needs to be here. This place still needs to look like it did almost 160 years ago. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, good. Aaron, thank you very much for the call. Let's go on to Andy here. Oops, I didn't mean to.
I didn't answer the visitor numbers, by the way.
What do you mean?
Aaron had a two-part.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What was the second part? What was the answer to the second?
He was asked about the impact of the closure of Little Round Top on visitation numbers.
Go ahead.
It's a short answer. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Sorry, I didn't want to leave him hanging.
Andy from Smithfield, Virginia. Andy from Smithfield, you're on the air. That's my Larry King.
Hey, Matt. First time, long time. How are you?
Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Hi, Superintendent Simmons Road. Appreciate your time this evening. I've got it's really two questions, but the first one's pretty easy. What is the typical term of a superintendent in a park like Gettysburg, time-wise?
Do you have plans? I'm not aware of. Sorry. So, unlike the military where they move you around, in the National Park Service, you either get removed against your will, or you have to apply to a different job or retire.
Okay.
And so my plan is not to get removed. I'll say
Reasonable
that.
plan, yeah.
Okay.
I will retire someday, but I'm actually having a lot of fun. Believe it or not, I'm having a tremendous amount of fun. It's a place where I'm continuing to learn, not only about my job, but Civil War, Gettysburg. And I think there's just, it's a lifetime of learning in this place, as you all
it is
know.
true. Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, it's really, as far as the term of superintendent goes, once you get one, good, bad, or indifferent, you might be stuck with them for a long while. Sorry.
We happen to know a young man that's shooting for superintendent.
That's right. We know somebody who his goal is to take your job, I guess, when you retire.
We should talk.
Yeah. Well, he has to get a permanent position first.
He has to get him into the...
He's got a long way to go, but he thinks he's just going to apply for it. We'll have a talk with him later.
He's ambitious.
No, well, I don't know if ambitious is the word, but yeah, we'll call it that. No, he's a good kid. But go ahead. Sorry, you were saying
I think we're waiting for Andy's second part.
Andy. Yeah, you were going. Go ahead, Andy.
The second part of that, knowing that you've got kind of an indefinite time horizon, do you have an idea of a strategic plan or a 5-year plan or some kind of time horizon plan where you've got goals that you want to get after that might not be near-term or short-term goals, but stuff that you're looking at for the future development or the future efforts that you'd like to see as part of the park?
Yeah, that is a really excellent question. I don't know if my time is indefinite because we are the federal government. We do need indefinite time, but things move very slowly, unfortunately.
That's why you need indefinite time.
I know. So, my primary focus is preservation and protection of this place. That is the key thing that I want to do, but I also have some fiscal realities. So there's a couple things that I really want to try to get moving forward, and I don't know how long it's going to take on some of these, but we definitely need to get them moving forward. So one of them is a trails plan. So I think we need to study our trails, where people are going, how people use them, what's most efficient and effective for how visitors use this space, learn about this place. We're not going to build trails solely for recreational use, just to get that out of the way. But we do need to take a look at our trail system and how those trail systems might connect with or complement what's happening outside the boundaries of the park. Because for our bicycle riders out there, it can be challenging riding a bike in the park. And I've done it, and I'm just like, I'd really like to go the wrong way down this road.
If it's a key, better not break your own rule.
It's a state law, folks. And I don't have discretionary authority to violate state law. So I understand that there's challenge with trails and getting around the different modalities. The other part of it is preservation and protection of our farmhouses, our farmsteads, if you will. So the one idea that's out there, for those of you that are familiar with the Bushman House, the park had rented that out like an Airbnb style opportunity for the public until I got here. Actually, until COVID got here.
COVID, that ruined it.
Which was when I got here. So we haven't done that since then. But we have a leasing authority within the National Park Service that I can use. And the leasing authority allows us to lease federal properties, and the revenues that are generated from that come back to the park and can be used towards maintenance of that park. So we're exploring that idea of potentially getting more farmhouses leased out. The park was managing the Bushmen by themselves, which I thought was insane because, you got to turn over the house between rentals.
Yeah.
And I had one person doing it who was our administrative officer. And there might have been other people doing it too. We had Maria and other people. I mean, there was other people involved. It was crazy because it's like this side collateral duty, and they're like, well, I can't get my normal job done, but now we're renting this thing.
Right.
So it just seemed unfair to the staff to do that. So we're looking at leasing, and so we want to get Bushmen back out there, potentially Slider, Rose, and Althoff.
That'd be awesome.
Steve, when you say leasing, you mean like long-term somebody lives in there? Or
So-
you mean like a couple nights you could rent it out?
Thank you for the clarification or opportunity to clarify. So we would lease it to a property manager, and the property manager would then be the one putting the opportunities on Airbnb or wherever to have that opportunity for the visitor. And I think each one of these houses has such a phenomenal story.
Yeah.
We've got photographs.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you can make that experience integrated into the story,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how moving.
But do you know how many people would kill to sleep in one of those houses? Just for one night? I would love that.
Oh, some people think it's really spooky. So
yeah.
But yes, you have also people that are like just love it.
Yeah, you get those
which
too.
is, a unique opportunity. It provides the opportunity for another way for the public to connect with this special space. And the most beautiful part about it is the revenues and the fee that they pay to stay there comes back to the park so that we can maintain the park.
Yeah, that's a great idea because, a lot of times you go to these parks and they've got old farmhouses and they're just sitting there empty. They don't even do anything interpretive with them. It's just there. So this is a great way because, we always hear government like agencies talking about, well, we don't have the money in the budget, and it's like all these things we'd like to do and everything. But this is a great way to make. I mean, you're not going to make a fortune, probably not, right? You don't think that,
it's
but
not a fortune, but it may fund the seasonal staff for the maintenance division.
And then, but people get the experience of sleeping on the ground, not literally on the ground. I mean, unless they go in the backyard and do it, but they get to sleep in the park that they love.
Yeah,
which most of us would love to be able to do that.
Yeah,
and here's a legal way to do it.
A lot of the farms are actually occupied by employees, though, aren't? Is that?
Yep. So you're
going to have a roommate when you rent the place, but
so it's going to be a phased approach. We're not going to kick anybody out of their house.
I just wasn't sure if I was missing like locations that you were thinking about doing this, or if there was because, like for example, the Warfield House is not something that I would think you would.
There's no utilities,
right?
In that one.
Yeah, but they're going to.
It's missing a floor even. So
right, yeah. While we're on houses, real quick, the Klingel house looks like it's in really rough shape.
Let's jump there.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is. We just awarded a contract for stabilizing the Klingel house so that in the interior of the building, they're going to frame it up to keep it up. Because what happened is we've got moisture that's trapped in the walls of that building. So the latex paint's trapping the moisture, and you can see it's just falling down.
Yeah.
So we're going to stabilize it, and then we're going to continue the design for a rehabilitation, and then ultimately rehabilitate it. It's probably going to take another couple years to get to that point, but the plan is to fix it.
Oh, good.
And hopefully not have a condition again where the moisture gets stuck in the walls.
Have you been in it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was in it a few years ago. When I first started, when I first started doing this, I interviewed the artist in residence that year, and she was staying there, and I was like, oh, can I see what it looks like inside? She's like, yeah, come in. So I went in, and I felt like I was drunk because the floors were like uneven and everything, and it's very interesting to walk around in there, but it's so cool to go in there, though.
I mean, I've not been inside, but even just driving down the road past it, it looks like, I'm not an expert, it looks either like termite damage or water damage. I mean, the wood just looks like it's rotting, and
it is.
In my opinion, quickly.
Yeah.
There was like a little hole, now there's like big chunks.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
It's a shame because it's a really cool little house, too. So I'm glad you guys are taking care of it, which is your job.
Thank you for the reminder.
How odd. All right, Andy, thank you very much for the call there. And come on, drop it. There we go. And Bernard, let's talk to Bernard as soon as my computer picks up. Hello, Bernard. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How about yourself, sir?
Pretty good, thank you. What could we do for you?
Good evening, Superintendent Sims. Glad you're here. My question is about the Little Round Top Rehab project. Now, when it's complete, are there going to be areas that we're working on or able to go on prior to the cleanup or upgrades that are going to be off limits then?
So, Bernard, where are you going to be when it opens?
I'm hoping to be there to go, but I mean, I'm talking about like climbing on the stones and climbing in the front and all that stuff.
Yeah, so, there's definitely, there's the Worn Rock. It says don't climb this rock, right?
Yeah.
So we hope people don't climb the rock.
Not that one.
But the intent is to improve these spaces so that you have a place to go where everyone goes, because we've made that space, safe isn't the right word, but available for the visitors. And so, staying on trail is the primary goal. Climbing on rocks may not be what we want you to do, because you climb rocks. If you're in Devil's Den, I think the emergency rescue folks had to buy a special apparatus just to extract people from the rocks there. So we want people to be safe. We want to keep people safe. We want people to experience these places. And, if you can stay on trail, stay on the improved surfaces, you're part of that preservation mission. And hopefully you can find that experience that you're looking for. And I know there's a lot of stories and a lot of special places that people have traditionally gone. I'm not familiar with all of those, but if you have a question as to where you should go, ask. That's all I would ask. That way we can have an informed decision on, you want to go over there? Well, here's a way you can get there, or we'd really prefer that you don't, because there's maybe some sensitivity to that space. When
it is finished, you're not. So you're basically asking the public, if you can avoid it, please don't climb on boulders and make your own trails. But you're not like fencing things off or putting "Do not climb on boulder" signs everywhere.
No,
correct?
We're not going to put any. We're not going to plaster things with signs. We're not going to fence things off. We just ask the public to be respectful of the place and responsible for the place. Coming back to this has to be here forever. Mm-hmm. And one, we want you to be safe, but two, this has to be here. So. Don't scratch your initials and things. Don't pick at things. If you can avoid walking through vegetation to get places, because once you walk there, somebody's behind you and another person. The next thing you know, we have a social trail.
Yeah.
And we want to avoid those social trails. So, ideally, and you probably already know this, we don't have thousands of park rangers out there, watching everything.
Mm-hmm.
We expect the public to love this place, as they should, because it's your park. And just help us keep it for future generations.
All right. Bernard, anything else?
Nope. Appreciate it, and thank you. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Thank you very much for the call. Okay. Cliff McCurley, he is on the phone from California. Your home state there, Steve.
Welcome, Cliff.
Hello,
it's
Cliff.
Going to be a good one, I know already.
Yep. California, born and raised. Where are you from, Mr. Sims?
Tehachapi.
Say what?
Do you know where Tehachapi?
Tehachapi, no way. Okay. Oh, yeah, no Tehachapi well. So.
Nice. And yourself?
Yeah, anyways, we can... I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, Pleasanton, California. Yes, named after General Alfred Pleasanton of Gettysburg fame.
Beautiful spot.
I don't know what. Yep. But hey, so my question has to do with the dastardly corn. Was just there a couple of weeks ago, and that's it seems like most of the time I go there, it's like this infernal 10-foot tall seed corn, and I don't know if there's like stipulations. I know there's contracts with the local farmers, and certainly don't want to have them lose out on anything. But is there? Has there ever been that kind of discussion about maybe saying, hey, you guys can plant whatever you want here as long as it's not like 10 feet tall? Because, it's the resource. And when I go there in a lot of parts of the battlefield, even just a couple of weeks ago, it was like, well, I could get the same experience with the Leno book in my living room right now because I just can't see anything.
That's why you got to come in the winter time, Cliff. You can see a lot more of the lay of the land in the winter. Can I?
Oh, that's my next trip. That's for sure.
Yeah, Cliff. Let me add a question to yours so that he can answer them all together. Okay.
Sure.
So your question is about the corn and everything. I get a lot of people that ask, does the Park Service plant this? And then I tell them, no, it's leased to farmers. But that's how it works, right? It's leased to farmers. You guys don't have any say over what they plant. It can't be anything illegal.
Yeah, it can't be anything illegal. So, yes, there's over 1,500 acres in the park that are leased to farmers for agricultural uses. So everything from the corn to the soy to wheat, sorghum. Rye,
alfalfa. A couple years ago, I saw,
and
he was like, "Hey, no, I forget it." I was making a little. What was
Good,
that? Little Rascals joke. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
My God.
And so, Cliff, first of all, say you're right. You're right about the corn. You're right about its impact to the ability to view the battlefield, the view shed. We don't want to create a corn maze around here, but we do need to be sensitive to the farmers and the economics of farming, which I know nothing about. But I want to be respectful to the challenges that farmers have. But that is something that is on our list that we're going to look at is, can we work with these farmers to identify spaces where maybe corn may not be appropriate? Can we limit the height of what they're planting there? Because it comes to having balance. The Park Service doesn't have enough staff to manage all of this acreage, so that's one of the reasons we lease it. So it's a good partnership with the community. So we want to be sensitive to that and see where we can make some progress. I can't promise you quick progress on this, Cliff, and everybody out there listening, but it is a known issue. It has been brought up. Our licensed guides mention it to us as well. So yes, we're going to take a look at that. We're going to see what we can do. Point well made. Duly noted.
Very good, Cliff. Thank you. Anything else, Cliff?
Well, appreciate your time. Yep. No, that's it, buddy. You guys take care.
All right, you too. Talk to you later. Before we move on to the other callers, we've got a few more callers. The number is 717-420-1978. We're going to try to finish by 8:30 because we also have the Addressing Gettysburg Book Club that has Bill Stiepel on at 8:30. So we want to give people the opportunity to do that because we do have a lot of people in the club there. So a couple more people we can get calling in if you want to call in. Steve, you've mentioned a couple times we don't have enough law enforcement, maintenance, whatever it may be. Volunteers, what was it called? Adopt a Position is gone for now, but possibly coming back.
Yeah, so let me first say the official stance is we have enough resources.
Okay.
So, but speaking of volunteers, the Adopt a Position program. So when I got here, we had an employee that was managing that program. I didn't know what it was, but probably within a month or two, that gentleman left.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
He left. And then I started talking to the supervisor and some of the other staff, and they're like, yeah, we can never keep anybody in this position. It's a 6-month position, and people want more than 6 months of work.
I know a guy who might take it, though.
And so that was one issue. The second issue was it was a lot of touching. And what I mean by touching is that we had hundreds of groups, individual groups with their special place to come and volunteer, which is wonderful. They have a connection. They have a place they want to spend their time and give to the park, which is wonderful. But it was hugely administratively burdensome.
Okay.
So that was an issue. And so we've been evaluating this, and we are moving more in a direction of concentrated volunteer days.
Okay.
And so like you did on National Public Lands Day, we had, I don't know, it was 20, 30 people out there.
Something like that, yeah.
And made a huge impact in 4 hours. And we think that's a good model where we can say, hey, National Public Lands Day, and this time is just one project, but maybe in the future we can have 2, 3, 4. We've got staff out there, we resource it, and we've got now 300 people out there making a huge impact in a very short amount of time. It's efficient for the park and effective for us because as our staff shrinks, it's less staff to manage volunteers. So we think that's going to be an effective process that doesn't preclude our supervisors and our division chiefs from engaging with people that have a special passion. So if somebody wants to go and clear the weeds out of Devil's Den and that's all they want to do, and it's 1 or 2 people, contact the staff. I think on your website you got a link to Randy Hill.
Do we still?
You do. Yeah, you do. I checked it.
Oh, okay.
It works. I'm sorry, Randy. You're going to get 1,000 emails. But, reach out. We'll see what we can do. What I want to do is, Randy is phenomenal and does a ton of things. He doesn't have a lot of time to supervise volunteers. And that's the thing we want to do is make sure our volunteers are resourced, know what they need to do, know our rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have lots of rules.
Sure.
Just do. So that we can work together to achieve the park's goal of maintaining these spaces. And your goal, too, because you love this place.
Right.
So we want to, again, move towards more of concentrated times, National Trails Day, National Public Lands Day. Maybe there's some other dates out there. I know the Gettysburg Foundation has, their days, their volunteer days as well, which are highly effective and impactful. And I think that's just more efficient for us for where we're at with staffing and the ability to manage all those volunteers. And that may not work well with that, but give us a chance to test it out.
Sure. You got to try
and
it.
If it belly flops, then hey, I'll eat my words and we'll try it. Something else.
So are you saying then if I decide next year when we do our get out of the car tours in say October, if I contacted the park and said I'd like to offer people the opportunity to volunteer to clean up a section. We're doing a tour in this area. Anything that you need done, because after the tour we'll do it. Is that possible?
Reach out.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I don't want to preclude people from asking.
Yeah.
But I want to strike a balance of a huge administrative burden, because for everyone that volunteers, I need a piece of paper. Because if you get injured, it's
sure,
we're responsible.
Yeah.
And also, I want to make sure the liability piece is covered. That my legal policy requirements are covered for volunteers. And that's hugely administrative. So concentrating it allows us to get all that done in a little bit more efficient manner.
Okay, that's good. All right, let's go to. I think this is Charlie. Charlie, you're on the air.
Well, you beat me to the punch, guys. My organization's been volunteering at the national park since 2001 in the Adopt a Position program.
Very good.
One of the areas to take care of was up at Culp's Hill. Before we started, nobody even knew it was there. So I guess my question was going to be what are the future plans for the program? It was going to be reinstated, but I guess you answered that.
Was it satisfactory answer, Charlie, or do you have some advice for me?
Well, not necessarily the one I wanted to hear. I mean, we've got half a dozen people that travel from Wisconsin out to Gettysburg twice a year to clean the area out. And we'd like to continue doing that. It's part of our service to history.
From Wisconsin, you're saying?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. See, people love this from all over the country.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Charlie. Really appreciate your dedication and your volunteerism towards the park. We're going to continue to work on it because I don't want to lose your support of the park.
I think, Steve, what you might need is to bring me on as a special liaison or czar of some kind of fancy title, and where I can help you guys corral and orchestrate all of these volunteers, because there's so many people that really, I mean, we talked about this, and you get it. I remember you saying you were, when you first came here, like it wasn't, people aren't this way back at Valley Forge, or aren't as much in love with Valley Forge as they are here.
As
something
engaged.
to that. Huh?
As engaged, maybe.
Engaged, that's a good word. And people really, they will come from Wisconsin to clean up. I know they do, but I mean, this guy's from Wisconsin. Yeah. So, there's got to be something.
I know Matt's joking a little bit about the czar thing, but
no, I'm not.
Would you ever consider something like a volunteer position that would handle that?
Oh, yes.
Let me preface this with
kind of what I was talking about.
When I lived in Pittsburgh, I was part of the Civil War Roundtable, Greater Pittsburgh Civil War Roundtable. Our adopted position was the 155th Pennsylvania up on on Little Round Top. Fairly big plot of land with some overgrowth and things like that, but in the spring and in the fall, we would come out for a weekend of service. We would normally get a tour from either a park ranger or a licensed battlefield guide one day, have dinner together, and then the next day, or the vice versa, we would clean and then have a tour, or have the tour and then clean the next day. And I know that group took it pretty darn hard. I mean, there were, consistently 20, 30, 40 people. But my experience was we showed up, one of the park staff came, unloaded equipment, gave a piece of paper with a clipboard to our group and left. So we were responsible for signing the waiver ourselves, and then we were responsible for cleaning and then leaving the equipment there, and then it was picked up. I can't imagine that's the best way possibly to do it to avoid liability or whatever. But I just wonder if, you have Park Watch volunteers, you have other folks that are really invested in local, volunteerism. I wonder if maybe somebody like that would spearhead or I don't know, just spitballing a
I
little
appreciate
bit.
that.
Yeah,
we're
that's kind of what I was talking
We're going to continue to chew on this one. It's not fully baked.
But I see, and I like that. I like answers like that because it's not like, no, it's my way or the highway. It's like, well, no, we're going to think about it and we'll take your input and we'll consider everything, and that's nice. It's refreshing, frankly. Yeah. I must say. Charlie, thank you for the call, and thank you for volunteering all the way from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Hey, that's all we do.
Okay, thank you very much. And we got another Charlie, but this Charlie goes by Chuck, apparently. Go ahead, Chuck, you're on the air.
Oh, thanks. Superintendent Sims, thanks for being on the program.
Thank you.
And my question is about the Confederate monuments on West Confederate Avenue. I hope they don't go away, but are there any plans or any thoughts about some additional signage, reinterpreting some of those monuments that were placed there?
Yeah. So, first of all, as far as I know, there's no plans to take them away. It would take an act of Congress. So not within my authority. My charge here is to protect them, interpret them until the big boss says otherwise. So, as far as the interpretation of the Confederate monuments, the one thing I'll say is that if you go to our website, we have scanned a lot of documentation on the establishment of the 13 state Confederate monuments. So I think it provides that opportunity for the public to do their own research, come up with their own thoughts and conclusions or understanding of these Confederate monuments. Because I think the topic is just complex.
Oh, yeah.
It's very complex. And, at one point we were looking at providing a contextual wayside at every Confederate state monument. And we're kind of pulling back from that because you basically ended up with 13 waysides that said the same thing. So the approach that we're contemplating right now is putting a wayside at the Virginia Monument.
Okay.
To provide some contextualization, some information, give people an opportunity to think about it. And that's what we want to do. We want to provoke thought. We don't want to tell you how to think or what to think. We just want to provoke thought. And so that's
also refreshing.
Just beginning to get the ingredients together, so it's not even in the oven to be start being baked. So we're just now talking about that and how we can provide something there, because that's a very popular spot.
Is this the first time you're saying this publicly, that they're doing that?
Absolutely.
So you haven't heard any flack from that for even just doing that?
Well, no, this is the first time that what I'm saying now is where our thoughts are and the direction where we're thinking of going. So if you have some feedback for that on that for me, I'm happy to listen, because again, we just want to provide the visitor with context,
right,
and the opportunity to learn.
I think that's a great idea. You got to have something else there to explain the rest of the story. Especially in this day and age. Go ahead, Ronnie.
I'll personally throw out a kudos to your chief of interpretation, Chris Gwynn.
He's awesome.
He's pretty darn awesome.
God, he's awesome.
He really is.
He really is. And the More History, #MoreHistory initiative that he's spearheading with Dr. Hancock, I think that's important.
I do too.
When everybody's saying, erasing this and canceling that, there's always more to the story of, for example, how the monuments got placed, who dedicated them, when were they placed, and what context were they placed. And I think all that's important to have a full understanding of the significance of the monumentation on both sides of the battlefield.
Not enough Americans listen to Paul Harvey because they would know that every story has the rest of the story. So,
But I think we're very fortunate to have Chris here.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And all the staff. I'm going to toot the horn of all the staff. I mean, Chris Gwynn is phenomenal, but this is the best staff.
We say it all the time.
Worked with.
We say that we don't get to work with the whole staff. We only interact with the interpretive staff. And every one of them is fantastic.
Yeah. Every one of them.
Yeah. Not one is boring. They're all engaging. They know, they're friendly. I mean, they're great. They really are great.
They're passionate.
Yeah.
And there's visitors that are passionate. The staff is passionate. They love this place, and they pour their heart out into this place.
Yeah.
It's contagious.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a lovely place to work, and I'm just honored to be here. Really am.
I don't blame you. Chuck, thank you very much for the call.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks. Sean Gentile, I can't tell. It's kind of all messed up, but let me press talk here so that we can hear you. And as soon as okay, here you go. Sean, are you on the air?
Hey, yeah, John.
John.
What's going on?
Gentile. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, we just became friends on Facebook today.
That's right. Yeah, I live in Fairfax, Virginia. Superintendent, thanks so much for doing this. The Q&A has been great. I hope this is the first of many. So thanks.
Me too.
There have been rumors about a long-term plan, even if it's in the discussion phase, that would make Gettysburg a driving-only park, or even that only buses would be allowed on the battlefield, and tickets would be required. Would you speak to us specifically to that issue, or if anything like that's under consideration?
Great question, John. Thank you very much.
John, I think that's 100% rumor.
I'm glad. That's the answer I wanted. I'm good.
Nothing to it.
So, but I will say, there's always a but, right? We are engaging with transportation folks to evaluate transportation. Yeah, we have lots of use of the park avenues, conflicting use of the avenues. There are no proposed solutions to that, but I think we're probably 5 years away from any kind of proposed solution. That'd be my guess. So as of today, there's no talk of driving only in the park. I mean, right. I think you got to get out on your feet.
I agree. I agree.
You got to see it. You got to feel it.
Yes, you do.
You got to smell the air. You got to have the wind blow through your hair if you've got it.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Don't worry. I have enough for both of us.
It's, again, it goes back to people connect differently to these resources.
Yes.
And we need to be able to provide everyone the opportunity to find their connection.
Okay. Is this Jeremy? Hello. 540, you're on the air.
Hey, Casey Turbin. How's it going, buddy?
Oh, Casey Turbin. Man, it says, Jeremy, it's Mom. Hey,
Jeremy's
Peter, been calling for the
call.
last. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the Superintendent how he suggests the petition. What's the best way? He mentioned earlier in the show that, he's kind of held by Congress. He's saying that if we do have suggestions, do we send him letters? Do we talk to a congressperson in Virginia if we're from here? But, what's his best way to he suggests for us to make suggestions and even, petition Congress or his people above him?
For what?
For change. He said that, when he says, we're worried that they want to shut down the parks, the buses only. How do we say, hey, we don't want that to happen? Do we send him 1,000 letters? Or things like that.
Shoot me an
email. We have something to say.
Just email me.
So go to you directly.
Just go to me. Yep.
Okay.
Email me.
Good.
Yeah. And
very good.
What is my email?
I can look it up.
So if you go onto our website, I think it's like Superintendent.
I've got it. Hold on.
GETT@nps.gov.
I have, let's see here.
Or GETT_superintendent@nps.gov. What's one of those two?
It is Steven_Sims@nps.gov.
Well, that's my direct email.
Oh, what did you say? Oh,
now it's too late. No, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
That was perfectly fine. The reason I sent gave you that other one is because it goes to my communication specialist, because not every question needs to come to me. I've got experts, and he would send it to the experts.
Okay. So
if it comes to me, it might be delayed. That's fine.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize there was like a general catch-all.
It's all good. I'm not trying to hide anything. You want to email me, email me.
Well, yeah, I know, I understand that, but hopefully you're not going to get flooded with inane questions now. Not that Casey asked us an inane question, but you never know what listeners might do. Anyway, anything else, Case?
No, very good. Just wanted to re-summarize. If we have questions, concerns, go straight to the man. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
thank you, Mr.
absolutely, we do. Thank you, Casey. Thank you very much. All right, Debbie Jones, Little Debbie, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you again, Superintendent Sims, for doing this. We all really appreciate it, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you.
My question's kind of similar to the earlier round top question. Obviously, there's been a lot of social trails created up there, and they kind of suggest that because they're there, the places they go to are places people want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So with the rehabilitation project, obviously the erosion needs to stop. I mean, from being up there, it's clear that's a problem that needs to be fixed. So with the project, are some of those social trails going to be paved so that people can still get to those places that are important to them, but that erosion can be kind of, stopped in its tracks? And
yeah,
I'm from Michigan, so my first thought is the 16th Michigan Monument. Like, if you can get down to it, you can turn around and see how bad that erosion is.
Mm-hmm. It's a slippery rock to
want
get
to be
there.
able to get to it.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and I believe on our website you'll see the renderings of where the, I'll say, the formalized trails system is going to be. And there should be access to every monument and marker on Little Round Top. So the theory here is the visitor has access to those key places that they should be visiting. And if there's not a trail there, there's probably a reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Debbie?
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for calling in. We'll talk to you next time. Call in more often. All right. Is this Steve, or is he just saying our guest's name? Yeah. Steve, you're on the air.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I had a specific question regarding the anniversary battle walks that have been taking place for, over 20 years, and over the last couple years, everything's changed to where now we actually aren't walking out on the ground. We're not getting these interpretive, more detailed battle walks with the seasoned Rangers. I've heard a lot of, kind of negative stuff from actual Rangers saying, yeah, we're kind of being told we got to kind of stay on this quote-unquote trail, and they don't have these programs anymore. So my first question was just, what exactly is going on with that? And, this whole park, this is our land. It's not yours. Not, there's not a thing you can't go out in this field. That's the whole point why this place is so beautiful. So just like to know if they're going to bring back the actual anniversary battle walks that, really special to hundreds of people every year that got to go on these special programs.
Yeah, great question. So for the anniversary battle walks, those walks are developed by our interpretive staff. We mentioned Chris Gwynn and his staff earlier, and they are phenomenal, as you well know. So if they have a battle walk where they want to get to a specific place because they have a specific story or point that they need to make, two things. One, is there a trail that goes there already, a mode path, if you will? Mm-hmm. And if there's not, then we'll evaluate whether or not we need to create a new path. Is it compelling enough that we need to create a new path to that space? Or is there an agricultural lease to a farmer who's now going to lose part of their crop because now we've got 300 people walking in that space? So we want to balance preservation and protection with visitation. And so that is the approach. It doesn't specifically answer your question because we'd have to specifically see what the battle walk is, or what that story, or what that day of the battle they're trying to talk about, or that whatever that story is.
Yeah.
We'll have to evaluate it independently. Or
so, in other words, you're saying that the ranger was saying we can't go on the fields, maybe because there was a crop growing there.
Or they wanted to take a fence down to get through there. The rangers need to comply with the same rules as the public.
Uh-huh. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I've known a lot of the Rangers, a lot of them too, that are now retired, and I was through all the glory years of Hartwig and John Heiser, and it was always important. You walk the ground that specific regiment or brigade that we might be doing, and that is specifically told to me by many colleagues of yours, and it's not just like a rumor mill thing, and we all kind of see it firsthand the last 2 years. We're like, what's going on? All of a sudden there's a go to one spot, you stand there, and it's kind of more generalized sense. When it was a more detailed, that was really important. And I guess for time purposes, I was on Hartwig's big walk when the Harmon Farm property got bought by the trust and given to the battlefield. And his biggest thing was, look, this is the monument, this ground, this is your ground. You can walk anywhere you want to, because it's the footsteps of these men, it's to interpret the property, get out of the car, get out there. So my next question, just for time's sake, is since that was done, we were all excited. Nothing's been done over there. It's just golf cart paths. And I just wonder, I mean, that's been however many years when we got that property, and it's like, wow, it gets to the government, and then nothing's done. It's just grown out. There's no interpretation going over there. It's really hard to get out to that spot. So I'd like to know if there's any final update or something we can actually get out to that important piece of ground.
Yeah, great question. It is an important piece of ground. And what we're doing is we're putting together what we call a cultural landscape report. And so we're going to evaluate it, its history, its what's significant about it, its integrity, what are those aspects of that space that we need to be paying attention to as we move into a design phase to design the rehabilitation of that space. So we haven't finished the planning yet. So that's been something that's been ongoing. And then once we finish that, I'll have to compete for project dollars to do the design. And so that's another process. So I have no guarantees I'm going to get design money or construction money, but that is something I will continue to work towards, and also working with our partners, with the Gettysburg Foundation, and seeing if that's one of our top priorities that we want them to focus on and assist us with.
When did the park acquire that land?
Yeah, I don't know.
It was before. It was long before you got here.
It's been almost 20 years.
It's 2011, maybe?
Yeah, it's been a long.
Okay, so a decade or so. And then when you came in here, like you had pointed out early on in the show, that we had a couple of temporary superintendents.
Yeah.
And I think that time where we had those temporary superintendents, we lost time in things that started before they were there, because they just didn't move the ball forward at all. So now you're kind of playing catch up and also doing what is required today to keep the park going. So you're like catching up from the past, and so you got a lot. I wouldn't want your job. You have a lot on your plate. Like when you got here, you have a lot on your plate, and then you got to deal with people like us.
Well, there's a lot.
Yeah.
I'll concede. But it's an honor to do all this. And, I do want to say, in that rotating superintendent time period, their job isn't to create vision.
Right.
Their job is just keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
You're only here for a temporary bit of time. We don't want you creating new things, changing direction or anything. Just, keep the boat steady.
Right.
So I don't blame any of those rotating
No. I'm not trying to blame them. I'm just saying
it's just a fact.
We lost time.
And so it's hard to catch up because we're already limited on how much we can do in a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But we have a lot to do, and I think that's the part of the fun, is that I don't see an end to the job. There's always going to be something to preserve, something to protect, something to improve, something to change. And I know change is hard, but it's an exciting place. It's not a place where you're going to get bored.
But how about this, Steve's point about, at one point, the message from the park was get out there, get into the land, feel the topography under your feet, see what it's like to stand out in the middle of that field and look at the seminary or whatever. And now it seems like that message is changing to, well, keep your distance.
I think it's a balance.
Yeah.
And, back to the National Park Service mission of preserving and protecting in perpetuity. And if we're going to bring 300 people on a 4-hour battle walk into a space, that's going to have an impact. The feet on that space is going to have an impact. And there are things in that soil still.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to make sure that we preserve and protect it. We don't want compaction. We don't want erosion. Look what happened in Little Round Top. So if we encourage these things, especially in battle anniversary type style things, then you're certainly going to have lots of erosion and problems. But if you alone are going out there and there's no fence or anything out there, and you want to walk across the field and get your fill of ticks, then I don't think anybody's going to stop you, because they don't want the ticks either. But we'd prefer that you stay on the trail.
But it's really about large groups that you're talking about with that stuff, where we need to be a little more careful.
We certainly manage our own programs. We manage our commercial use.
Yeah.
We manage our permittees. But the individuals that are out there, and I see them all the time as I'm driving out there, they're all over the place. And I'm like, wow, I hope you got bug spray on or something. Are careful. There's rocks and there's snakes and there's wetlands and stuff. But we honestly, it's the Park Service mission to preserve and protect this in perpetuity. The best way to do that is to help us by staying on trail. It really is.
All right. Very good. Steve, anything else, Steve?
I just would add that the anniversary battle walks were once a year, and again, I just go back to Scott Hartwig. These programs all the way back to Gregory Coco for 30 years. We've been doing these walks, and it's not like that's happening every day, 300 people walking over the same spot. I'm not talking about up on Little Round Top with thousands of tourists walking over the same little spot there. I'm talking about if I want to walk Barksdale, Mississippi in charge on a battle walk specifically to a regiment, that was a really special thing because you're really there in a more detailed way with that regiment, and hundreds of people showed up for that and looked forward to it. And I'm just telling, I think I could speak for a lot of people, not just a handful of hardcores that, it's been very disappointing. So, I don't see an erosion thing of walking across that field on an anniversary program. I think that was a special thing that we've loved for, decades, and we hope to get back once, get back to those days.
Gotcha. I got you, Steve. Thank you very much for the call. How about that point, though, that these walks that he's talking about, these big group events and everything, they're not every day, and they're not going over heavily trodden ground like Little Round Top. Trod? Ground like Little Round Top. They're going out in a field that nobody really ever goes to.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the question, and it's something we'll continue to look at. But, if my rangers are allowed to do it, then the commercial use authorizations and those permit holders are authorized to do it too.
Right.
The other permit holders are authorized to do it too. And next thing you know, it's not just the battle walk.
Yeah, it's everybody. Okay, I see what you're saying. All right, so we got 4 more calls. Area code 304, you're the last one. Right now, though, we're going to go to, the great American songwriter Don McLean. Don McLean, you're on the air.
Hey, guys. I don't know if you talked about this yet. I just got out of the recording booth with my friend Barry Manilow, so I apologize. Steve, you know me as Don from the Dayton, Ohio area, so hopefully you'll make that connection. But I spent a lot of time here in Ohio defending the National Park Service in Gettysburg, especially for the Little Round Top rehabilitation and the timing of that. So I was wondering, if you haven't already, could you talk a little bit about the budgeting system and how that encumbers planning? And, it's all about timing. It's all about making sure that things happen, different appropriations. I don't know if this is making sense to you, but can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
What an exciting topic. Thank you, Don.
How much time do we have?
30 seconds.
So, Don, appreciate the question. There's probably, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 different, I'll call them colors of money that have been involved in the Little Round Top project, everything from design to construction. And so some of those colors of money is a specific request, and I have to compete for that money. Some of that money is donated money. And so it all has to kind of come together at the right time in the right amount to move that forward. So it's, having a project that started and then stopped and then started again, it's tough because some of this money has an expiration date too.
Yeah. So go into that a little bit so that people understand, because I don't think people get that.
Oh, boy. Again, how much time do we have?
Very briefly. If they want to know more, they can call and email you or something.
Yeah, fortunately, we've got, for the construction, we have what they call, there's 3 different colors of money for the construction. There's Helium Act money, and Helium Act requires a non-federal match. So the donated monies get matched 1-for-1 with Helium Act money. And then we have federal highways money, too. So all the roadway work that you see up there is being paid for out of a federal highway bucket. The design piece, I think we had some what they call cyclic and repair rehab funds that funded the design piece. Those funds have 2-year life cycles.
Okay. Don?
Well, so the point is, money has a time period behind it, and the government's not a very efficient organization, and it just takes all the timing and has to line up with the funding. So that explains a lot of this is out of the control of the Park Service. Would you agree?
It's a mixed bag, I would say. Some of it is just the process, and the process is what it is. And once we start it, we kind of know where we're going to land. And some of it's the federal appropriation process. So it's, I think if I were to start this one over from scratch, it probably wouldn't have taken as long. Not to say it wouldn't have taken long, but I think the Where am I going with this? It just takes a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the point I wanted to bring out.
Yeah. Thank you, Don.
That's all I got.
All right, Don. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Mr. American Pie. All right, we've got Matt Kelly on the phone. I think it's yeah, Matt, you're on the air.
Hey, guys. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the call.
You're welcome.
I'm a long-time Gettysburg guy. I just wanted to ask the superintendent, as a kid going there since 1981, I always look forward to going there after dark, too. And I understand there's short staffing and vandalism and stuff like that. But is there any chance of possibly the park being open after dark ever again for a few hours or certain parts of the year?
This is a question near and dear to my heart, as Steve knows.
It only took us an hour and a half to get here. I'm surprised.
I almost started with it, but I said, let's go with the Beavers.
Matt, thank you for the question. So, it's really three reasons for the change in the park hours. One is safety. So, there's no lights in the park. As you're probably well aware, there's areas that, aren't that safe when you're out there in the dark, especially if there's no moon. Liability. The park's liability. Somebody gets injured out there, it's a tort claim. It's a potential liability to the National Park Service. And then staffing. I only have so many staff members, especially law enforcement, who are absolutely superb at what they do. But I only have so many. And so, if there's an emergency response that's needed or just patrolling in general, I have limited staffing. And so for safety and liability reasons and staffing reasons, it made sense to change the hours to, sunset or, sunrise to sunset as far as when the park's open, plus 30 minutes on each end. So for our photographers and those that like those sunrises and sunsets, you have that opportunity. And we're in alignment with other parks as well because we did that research. So that's the reason.
What time does Park Watch isn't out there all night, right? They stop at a certain time.
I can't disclose their schedule.
Okay.
Kind of defeats the purpose.
It does, doesn't it? Okay. Well, I guess my question is, if we have Park Watch out there, and maybe, again, we put out a call for more volunteers to join Park Watch, could we not, at least during the summer, go back to 10 o'clock? I mean, it may be a personal favor to me.
Matt, I will consider it.
Thank you. There we go.
If you don't mind me adding, I'm a cop from New Jersey, and I'll gladly help out in the summertime.
There you go. So you got a volunteer cop right there.
What happens
He'll bring
when
his
the Park
Billy
Watch
Club.
start
There you go. And
arresting
we
each
don't
other?
volunteer too often.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Park Watch will start arresting each other. That's not, you don't want that.
I'll tell you another thing that's related to the park hours that's a staffing issue. So I had staff going out and changing every sign twice a year on the park hours.
Yeah. I got a solution to that.
I bet you do.
The bottom, always. There's a little hook on the bottom, and you just change the hours, and it's a own little sign. You just hang it on there.
Those go missing.
Yeah. Park open from. No. We'll have it very secure.
So it's highly
I'll change
unlikely
the
we'll go
signs.
back.
Okay.
It's highly unlikely we'll go back, but I'll consider it.
Okay. I mean, just for like a couple months. June through August.
I hear you.
I'm just saying. It's beautiful. It's beautiful out there at night. Matt, I'll keep working on him from here. You send him emails, okay?
Yeah,
Please do. I'll
now
send
that
you
you have
both
it.
emails that were given. Thanks, guys.
All
I
right.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, sir. All right, Beth. Beth is on next, and then we're getting to our final call after that. Beth, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, thank you, Superintendent Sims, for coming on. I wanted to ask, you took a lot of flack last December with the Sergeant Mack Foundation with not allowing them to put the wreaths on the graves, and even this year there was a not so flattering article in the Gettysburg paper. Would you ever think about, one, possibly letting them do it again, maybe next year, or partnering with something like Wreaths Across America?
Beth, I really, really appreciate the question. I honestly do. And I'm actually surprised this one didn't come up earlier, too.
Yeah.
This is a hot button
I'm
topic.
also surprised that I forgot to put it on my agenda because it's the one to ask you about. Go ahead. Good question, Beth.
I want to explain this one because it's very important. So I think let's go back to July 4th, 2020.
Okay.
So July 4th, 2020, we had a fake Antifa post.
Something happened here
Something-
on July 4th, 2020.
I don't know what that would be.
So this social media post about a flag burning in the National Cemetery created a movement
Face
of
painting.
people. And so we had a lot of people come to the park to protect their park. A lot of them armed, a lot of them in the National Cemetery. And let me just, as an aside, I want to thank my law enforcement, as well as the community of law enforcement officers, Cumberland Township, the borough, state police. I think we even had Department of Homeland Security was here. I mean, and I'm not naming them all, so I apologize, but the law enforcement community were stellar.
Yeah.
They were fantastic.
And like everybody was here.
And they did a superb job. And their job was to make sure people stayed safe and that there was no damage to federal property. They achieved both of those objectives.
Yeah.
So from that, it was a success in managing that movement, because the rules and regulations and laws about First Amendment demonstrations and moving them into special spaces for that, I don't think contemplated this kind of movement. And so we managed it to keep people safe and keep property safe. So after that July 4th, 2020 activity, I got a lot of complaints.
Yeah.
About what happened in the National Cemetery specifically. So the park, myself and my staff started looking into National Cemetery regulations. It's a different regulation than what we use to manage the park, the rest of the park. And so we worked with our regional office, our Washington office. We had conversations and we reviewed the regulation and what we were doing, and we recognized that we were allowing things in the National Cemetery that are prohibited. So 36 CFR Part 12.4 says special events are prohibited in the National Cemetery except for Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and other dates designated by the superintendent as having both commemorative and historic significance to that National Cemetery. So we reviewed everything that was happening in there. We had the Masons having an event. So we talked with them, and they're no longer having their event in the National Cemetery. We talked to the college, and the college worked with us. And this year, they made the change, and they went to Meade's headquarters and had their event. But the students still were able to walk through the National Cemetery and have that experience.
Right. With the freshmen you're talking about. Yeah.
The first year walk. Yep. When we talked to the Sergeant Mack Foundation, they were less receptive and still wanted to have their event. Now, we said the wreaths, and here's a key fact. Wreaths were always allowed. We never said no to the wreaths. Wreaths are covered under Part 12.10 as a floral tribute. So the box trucks in the National Cemetery and the unloading and putting the wreaths out were always going to be approved. It was just the ceremony.
Right.
The ceremony piece, we said, this event is not historic to this National Cemetery or commemorative to this National Cemetery. It's important. It's important. Their cause is just.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with it. Is a beautiful thing that they're doing. It's just all 14 national cemeteries in the national park system have to interpret and apply the law the same way.
Right.
So last year, as soon as I had the conversation with Sergeant Mack, they immediately went to elected officials and the Times and everything else and took it out of my hands. They went to the Washington office. The Washington office said, hey, we're going to do a review of all 14 national cemeteries, which they did. And in the meantime, we allowed status quo. So they were allowed to do their wreath laying and event last year in the National Cemetery, same as Gettysburg College. But then August 15th of 2022, so just this past August, the National Park Service finished their review of the policy and the law and confirmed special events in national cemeteries are prohibited, except for Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and other dates designated by the superintendent as having commemorative and historic significance to that national cemetery.
Okay. So wreaths are okay. Chest-thumping speeches, not okay. Because that's kind of... Well, but... okay, I don't want to get into what they're all about, but it's because I don't really know. But I just read that article in the paper, and there were some things I had more bones to pick with them than you. So it's not allowed, the ceremony, period. But you do have, you said, some discretion. Like the superintendent can decide, right?
So the superintendent can designate dates.
Okay, so not events.
That have both Yep, they have both commemorative and historic significance to that national cemetery. So that's one. To allow a special event, you must be historically. It must have a designated date,
Right.
which has to be historic and commemorative.
So like 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of July.
Correct.
Okay.
November 19th.
November 19th.
Correct.
Right.
And it must be official, meaning that event must be sponsored or co-sponsored by the National Park Service, which means it has to have a connection.
Yeah. So in going to whoever they went to, Congress or over your head, trying to get their way, they accidentally kind of triggered a thing that came back and said, no, actually, you can't do this.
Well, we already knew that.
No, I know, but I think they were thinking that they were going to
Show you.
show you, yeah.
Well, I don't know what they're thinking. I just know that again, I'm not here for myself. I'm here to do the right thing and to bring the park and its management into compliance with policy and regulation. And I'll try to do that in the best, most personable way I can. Yeah. And in that instance, I failed it, doing it in a way that was allowed us to find common ground. We were unable to find common ground.
So is it fair to say that a lot of the things that a lot of us people who've been coming here for decades have gotten used to on the park were actually not really allowed, but kind of, I shouldn't say not really allowed. Obviously they were allowed because we did them, but they weren't sanctioned. They were not, they were prohibited in some cases.
Yeah, I would say the park probably didn't apply due diligence to reviewing these activities in accordance with law and policy like they probably should have.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We got one more call, and then we're going to let Steve get the final word there and whatever he wants to say. Thank you, Beth, for the call. And
real
go ahead.
Quickly.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you know my little role in this goofiness that we do on the live show on Fridays.
Goofiness?
I know. I do news and events, right? So I remember when the whole Sergeant Mack first happened the first time and everybody lost their minds, seemingly everybody. I will just tell you, there were a lot of folks that understood that the Park Service was not necessarily being the unreasonable organization there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of give and take. I see even in the comments now with folks that said, hey, look, if you're honestly just trying to honor the legacy of someone, placing the wreath should be enough. It shouldn't have to be.
Thank you.
I'm not saying chest thumping. But look at me, look at why I'm doing this. We have to have the attention on us kind of thing. The wreaths could have been placed and the sentiment could have been
down at Meade's headquarters.
Right. And the fact that they chose not to do that spoke in a lot of circles on social media, especially more loudly than the Park Service.
Absolutely.
So thank you for explaining that. And I just want you to know that I'm sure it kind of seemed like you were dangling out there by yourself for quite a bit of that because there was a lot of, loud nonsense in the press and everything. But there were a lot of folks that understood the policy and thought that they handled it. The other organization handled it improperly.
Yeah.
Or poorly. Let me put it that way.
That's where I stand too on that whole thing. Yeah, I agree. Okay. 304 West Virginia.
Hey, Matt.
Oh, boy.
Hello, Mr. Sims.
Hey.
It's Cameron Mallow.
He's shooting for the superintendent. You better duck.
Cameron, here's your big chance. This is the guy who wants your job, Steve. So,
oh boy. Well, Cameron, you and I should have coffee.
Cameron doesn't drink coffee.
Cameron
hot chocolate.
He'll have hot chocolate.
Mountain Dew.
Cameron, here's your one chance to dazzle the man who can make your dreams come true. Go.
All right. Well, Mr. Sims, my question is, I've been now working with the Park Service for 3 years. And since 2016, I've been a volunteer with the Park Service. And my goal is to get on at Gettysburg for at least one season and then see where it goes from there as an interpreter. 2020, I made the big move. I actually have a place within 5 minutes of the battlefield behind the Round Tops now.
Nice.
And this past summer, I took a big leap. I went all the way to North Dakota, where I visited other national parks and tried to learn more about myself, which I did and had a great time. But my all-time goal is still be at Gettysburg eventually. And
Cameron, what's your point? People have bedtimes here. What's your point? Get to your point.
What else can I do to try to get that goal of working in Gettysburg on interpretive staff?
Yes. How can Cameron expedite his dream here?
So, Cameron, I would say that coming to Gettysburg is very difficult. Being an interpreter at Gettysburg is a highly coveted position. And you know why. I mean, we've got PhDs and people with master's degrees that are interpretive rangers. And when they get in here, they stay. And I'm glad they stay because they are the experts. They're phenomenal. And so, two things. One, a vacancy comes up once in a blue moon. So that's going to be really tough. When it does come open, you are competing against the best of the best of the best, sir. I mean, it is highly competitive.
Military, do they get preference?
Military,
Veterans?
So it depends on how we announce it.
Okay.
So depending on if it's an entry-level job or a seasoned job, we could announce it so anyone can apply, and that's when veterans preference kicks in. So that means veterans will move to the top of the list. Or it could be merit promotion. Veterans can still apply, but they don't have preference in that scenario. So anyone, and this goes for anybody wanting to be in the National Park Service, because it is one of the hardest agencies to get a job in because it's the National Park Service. It's such an awesome mission.
Yeah.
Such an awesome
cool
mission.
hats.
We have cool hats.
Yeah.
Indeed.
It's awesome. So my suggestion for anybody that wants a job in the National Park Service is that you got to be mobile. To get your foot in the door, you got to be mobile. Apply to. There's 423 national park units. Go on to USA Jobs and get your foot in the door by getting a job anywhere and get status. And once you have status, then you can apply to different jobs in a merit promotion style. You're not competing in the full open sources jobs with veterans at that point, theoretically, depending on the announcement. But that's one way to do it. But again, Cameron, it is extremely difficult. I'm just not going to lie to you. It's very hard. I do wish you the best at getting your foot in the door and getting to Gettysburg because you know how special it is, and I thank you for that.
All right, Cam?
Yep. Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Just been grading cases all evening.
It sounded like you were crying. I got all worried. Oh, God. Okay, so you're okay. You're not crying. All right. So anything else that you'd like to ask Superintendent Sims?
No, I just hope that maybe this year could be a year I get a job closer to Gettysburg or back or at Gettysburg. I'm just hoping.
Well, if you want closer, I know McDonald's on Steinway was hiring.
I'm not going backwards. I'm going forwards.
Okay, good boy. All right, Cameron. Hey, we're doing a regular show tomorrow, Cam, so I hope to call you. You call in, okay?
Are we?
Yeah, we are. Otherwise, we got to go. So have a good night, Cam. Sorry, I just hung up on him. All right. Superintendents.
I have one real quick. This is such a weird obsession with me, and I don't know
Oh,
why.
my.
So, like the little black rectangular markers that say Peach Orchard, for example, or Wentz Farm or something. There's not one on the Forney Farm, and I'm sure there are other locations where there aren't. Where did those originate? Who decided what was going to get marked? Is there any way fundraisers could be done to place something? Like if somebody spearheaded like the round table or something? I'm just kind of curious. Like I don't know why I'm fixated on that, but for sure the Forney Farm was a pretty important location, right? And even for the dedication of the Peace Memorial, yada, yada. But there's nothing there that like marks. But then like random things like the Wentz Farm is marked. And I'm kind of like, okay, I don't know. Just curious.
I don't know the answer specifically, but it's likely you got to go back to when the commission was developing the park and when those things initially came out. And then when it got transferred over to the National Park Service, we tried to preserve and protect those markers as they were.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't in the business of creating new markers like they did. That doesn't mean there might not be a need to identify a place or to guide people to a place of importance. And so that's something that we can evaluate, but it may not be the same marker because those are historic. And those are part of the, 1,328 markers and monuments that we have in the battlefield. And we want to make sure that we preserve and protect what we already have.
Okay. That's interesting.
Is there anything else that you would like to add in closing?
Well, I just want to thank you all and everyone listening and all of the callers. I mean, this has been an enjoyable experience.
I hope so.
And I hope informative for everyone. And I know I didn't provide
so.
the answers that people wanted in some cases, but at least you heard it from me.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity, and I thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And
I thank you for accepting the offer.
I look forward to coming back someday if you'll have me.
I was just going to say, if you're up for it, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I would love to do this once a quarter with you, like I do with Chris Gwynn. He does interpretation. Obviously, you come on and just talk about general stuff. I think it would be great. I think the audience would like it.
You're on.
All right. Very good.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. Steve Sims, ladies and gentlemen. First time on the show. First podcast ever, right?
First ever.
Ever.
Oh.
Wow. First
you
of
so much.
many now. Yes, really. Thank you all for listening. I saw we had good numbers there with viewers and everything like that.
Right around 150 the whole time.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Positive
You got to come on every week, Steve.
Yeah, a lot of positive feedback. In fact, so positive, somebody wants you to be their GPS voice.
Oh.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's very calming and soothing.
voice. Yeah. Wow, good for you, Steve. Nobody ever said that to me. So good for you.
Same.
All right. That's about it. So we're going to get going. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow. We're going to do our Friday show tomorrow because I'm going to be in Pittsburgh, October 8th, and Book Club, 8:30. And what else, Ronnie? That's it, right? Goodbye.
You need a guest.
Addressing Gettysburg Today is hosted by Matt Callery and Veronica Brestensky, Esquire. Produced by Eric, the producer, Moni. Applause led by Owen the Clabber. Guests of Addressing Gettysburg Today stay wherever they want. That's not our concern. To be a guest on the show, send an email to eric@addressinggettysburg.com. Addressing Gettysburg broadcasts from the Gettys Bike Tour Studios. Get a 15% discount on your next tour with Getty's Bike. I'm Huevos Grande, the voice of Addressing Gettysburg Today. Thanks for listening.
When they saw the honored flag they had not seen for years, hardly could they be restrained from breaking forth in cheers while we were marching through Georgia. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the Jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the flag that makes you free. So we sang the chorus from Atlanta to the sea while we were marching through Georgia. While we were marching through Georgia. While we were marching through Georgia.
If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's not a chicken.
This concludes our broadcast day.